It's your boy, Mike Will, the Mike Will Experiment, Episode 3, experiment along with me. Today I'm filming a video response to Spawnwave. I've never done a video response before. New to all of this. Like I said, experiment along with me. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the Switch Online. And not really a rebuttal per se, but a counterpoint to just how I think many of us maybe that aren't as outspoken on Reddit and such. I do post on Reddit, but I wouldn't call myself outspoken on Reddit. I tend to be almost a counterculture on Reddit, and I almost disagree with people more than I agree with them. It depends on the issue, but really on this issue was about, will they charge more for Switch Online because they're going to include Super Nintendo? His point was that the internet was going to go crazy if they did a tiered system where you have to pay $10 more to get into Super Nintendo games. I would say, that's a good point. I think all of his points were valid. I think the internet is going to go crazy over it. I think that, people are going to bitch and moan about it, obviously. That is going to happen. I think there will be some fallout there, but there's also a group of people like me who don't care about all of that other stuff. I don't need my Switch for voice chat. I don't need my Switch is a game system. I don't really, I would like to be able to play online, but every single online experience I've had with the Switch has been god-awful. Mario Maker, Mario Kart at the beginning was really laggy. Mario Tennis was awful. I'm not gonna say I've given up on playing games online with the Switch, but maybe it's not my go-to system for that. I have an Xbox One X right over here that does a perfectly fine job in those type of situations. So it would be nice to have that on the go, but you have to remember the Switch has a very lean operating system. I know they've hacked it, and I know they've pushed more out of it, but we don't know what that does to battery life. We're not really sure what that does long-term to the system. So that's, kind of my take on it is Nintendo designed this to be a games first system. So I think they need to rethink Switch Online, but do I think they need to add voice chat and all of that? Do I think they need to add voice chat and all of that for it to be amazing? No, I don't. Because to be quite honest, I wouldn't use those features much myself. Now, I know I'm not everybody, but there's a lot of people like me. I just want to play classic Nintendo games on my damn system. I bought a 3DS, not realizing, do some research, Mike Will, but I bought a 3DS, not realizing you need the new 3DS to play the Super Nintendo Virtual Console games, which is absolutely ridiculous, and I have no idea. Again, it's another Nintendo thing. They just kind of do things. I guess the 3DS wasn't powerful enough. I'm kind of not buying it, but I guess not. So, Animal Crossing looks great, so I don't know, why couldn't they emulate? Maybe it's they can't emulate Super Nintendo games, they would have had to port them, but then again, VC, you could port each individual game. I think maybe they wanted it to be a feature exclusive to the new 3DS, and this is kind of part of my theory as to why we haven't seen Super Nintendo games yet, because I feel like people paid $250 or $200 for this new 3DS. That was a portable experience only available on the new 3DS, or if you hacked your Switch, or if you have an Android and use emulators. The only official way is to buy a new 3DS and to buy Virtual Console. It's the only way you can play Super Nintendo games portably, period, right now. So yes, I do think they will charge up, will upcharge it, and for a couple reasons. One, a lot of people bought the new Nintendo 3DS, and maybe they would feel, I know that most of us don't care because we've moved on from the 3DS, but the new Nintendo 3DS is not that old. You think about how old the new Nintendo 3DS is. It's only been out a couple of years, if I recall. It's not super old, 2016. So a lot of people would probably have been upset if the Switch launched, because the Switch didn't launch that far after the new 3DS. So when you think about it that way, it's like maybe people would have felt a certain type of way about it if, they were... one of the big features is exclusive Super Nintendo VC, and then all of a sudden the Switch had it all. So I think that plays into it. I think they also weren't ready. I think that they just didn't understand what the people wanted. or that they would want these things that Xbox and PS4 have, but of course we do. But then again, at the same time, I more care about the classic games than Nintendo's back catalog. I can go to the Xbox for that other stuff. I can go to the PS4 for that other stuff. I personally don't care too much about that. It's not the number one thing. The number one thing for me, though, getting to the point here, the number one thing for me is Super Nintendo games. Number two, maybe GameCube, if they were to come out. I never got to really experience Super Nintendo when I was growing up. I had a Genesis. Didn't have a Super Nintendo, I had the Genesis. So I'm kind of burnt out on the Genesis games, but I never really got to sit, and I own a Super Nintendo, I don't own a Super Nintendo, I own a Retron 2, I own Zelda, I own Mario World, but I don't really sit in front of my TV and play those games. I have, but I haven't really been able to dig into them deeper because, do a deep dive on those games because, frankly, I don't play much in front of my TV. I'm a portable gamer almost exclusively, and I have those, main systems, the Xbox. I don't have a PS4, but I have a Xbox One X that I love because it's backwards compatible. I love all the Elder Scrolls games, all the Bethesda games. That's why I have that. My wife loves those games as well, so that's why we have an Xbox One X. If we want to chat, we can use that. I chat with my buddies from California. I chat with them on Xbox. They don't have a Switch. Most people that don't, in the sense of you're not getting a Switch for that. So I understand why those features aren't a priority to Nintendo. But for me, the priority is Super Nintendo games. And yes, Spawnwave, yes, I will pay extra, and I do not care. I will pay $60 a year. That's probably the limit, but I'll pay $30 a year. I'll pay $40 a year. Give me Link to the Past on my Switch. Give me Super Punch-Out. Give me Super Metroid. Give me Super Castlevania 4. I want it all. The games are actually playable. The NES games, while these games are, they're great, what did we get this? This is, last month. Donkey Kong 3, Mighty Bomb Jack, Wrecking Crew. Come on, Mike. Who are playing these games for more than 5 minutes? And it's nice to have this back catalog. I don't begrudge it. But I did grow up with the NES also. I skipped the Super Nintendo. I went NES, Sega Genesis. So in that sense, I missed out on the Super Nintendo completely, and that's why I own some of it. But again, I'm not really playing it because I want to experience it on my Switch in HD. The Retron hooks up to VGA. You know what I mean? It's not, I don't want to buy a Super Nintendo Classic because I don't want to play on my TV. I want to play on my Switch. So I understand you own a Super Nintendo Classic, maybe you own a new 3DS, you're not into the Super Nintendo and paying for it on your Switch. I get that, I totally get it. Spawnwave's points that he is making completely valid, but I think the counterpoint is there are lots of people like me that want that now, and we will pay for it. And I think Nintendo knows that. I think Nintendo is aware that we are willing to pay for that, and they will charge for it. I think that's absolutely 100% correct, and I don't care. I'll have my credit card out, and I will be ready for those Super Nintendo games. But I just wanted to kind of provide, I'm not going to be on Reddit bitching and moaning about, oh, well, they should include voice chat, and if they're going to charge more, not just Super Nintendo games, I'm not paying more for some Super Nintendo games. I bet you most of those people that say that now will press that button when the Super Nintendo games come out, and they can play Super Punch-Out in the palm of their hand, or they can play, Super Mario World in the palm of their hand. You think they're not going to press the button to buy that? I think a lot of people are fronting. I'm going to put it like that. I'm putting it in hip-hop terms for you. A lot of people are going to front when the Super Nintendo announcement comes out, because it's coming, right? September's coming up. The year anniversary's coming up. You know it's coming. You know this announcement is coming. I think people are fronting. I think they'll go and talk tough, just like Pokemon Sword and Shield. I think a lot of people talk tough on that, but when that game launches, how many of those people that were talking tough are going to just turn around and buy it? So that's what annoys me. It's really hypocritical to me. People like to make a big stink and then turn around and buy it anyway. It's like, vote with your dollars. I'm voting with my dollars, and my vote is on Super Nintendo games. So I will be there day one playing Super Metroid, because I never got to play it. I hope they release, most of the full catalog. I would hope they would release most of the full catalog from the Classic. Kind of like did that quasi with the NES, but it's not one-to-one the same. Which I think they want there to be difference between the products, so I think that's why they do that. I'd like them to launch 10 to 15 games. If they can make it 20 games and they charge $20 a year, I'm in. I'm in like Flynn. They charge $60 a game or $60 a year for 20 games, Super Nintendo games. I'm in, because think about how much those games are VC individually on the 3DS. They're $7.99 times 20. Yeah, of course, over the course of a couple years or 7 years. I guess it's $40 a year. like 4 years. But I'm, over the course of that time, eventually you're going to pay that much. But they're going to be adding. They're going to continue to add. If you had to buy those games individually, maybe you wouldn't buy all of them, right? You'd only buy the ones you like. And I think that's the argument. But regardless, the value you're getting for this is immense. You're talking about hundreds of dollars in value, $150 in value from 20 games, that if you'd had to buy them on VC, that's what they would have cost on the on the 3DS. And the 3DS doesn't even have a great library of Super Nintendo games. If we came out with 20 games of the Switch, I mean, can you imagine? People like to play it low, and yes, of course, they should have released it sooner. I mean, obviously, they promised it, and this is another point that Spawnwave made, they promised it on launch. So that's rough, and I do see some backlash from that. I personally don't care. I never expected them to add 48 games to this platform. So I'm fine with it. Personally, I could see why people would be upset, but I'm throwing money at it. I don't care. I'm not going to be upset about it. I'm going to be happily sitting there with my Switch. I'm going to be on my Switch like this. Like, just literally, like, when that Link to the Past, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I mean, come on. You can tell me you don't want that experience on your Switch. All these people that bought Cadence of Hyrule, a knockoff of that, you know what I mean, to some extent. All these knockoff games that we keep buying that are indie titles, you don't want the real thing on your Switch? I mean, give me a break. So I think it's a lot of, entitlement too. So that's kind of why I wanted to make this video. And, Nintendo values their IPs, and we know this already. So I'm buying it. Who are you buying it? Or are you mad, bro, like everybody else about this situation? Let me know in the comments if you're out there. I'm still a new YouTuber, so maybe no comments, but I'm going to keep producing videos and keep giving you new content, new thoughts to think about, new counterpoints. And this has been Mike Will for the Mike Will Experiment, Episode 3. Experiment along with me. Take care.